Of Mexicans packing for home after finding less opportunity in the United States than they'd hoped. Discovering a fragile economy and a weaker job market, many illegal immigrants are heading back south of the border, reversing a decades-long trend. RT's Medina Kochanova has more from Los Angeles.
Through inhospitable terrain to trigger happy border guards, crossing illegally from Mexico into the United States is a perilous journey, which for many desperate for a new life was always thought to be worth the risk. But times, and more importantly economies, have certainly changed.
Before I was working even 2 jobs, or 3 jobs at the same day. It was easy. But now it's sort of so difficult. You can spend a month to find a good job.
10 years ago, Gustavo, like many other Mexicans, came to California illegally to earn money, provide for his family, and enjoy a higher standard of living than at home. But now he has joined the rapidly swelling ranks of those thinking it's time to pack their bags and head back south.
Because of the poverty that was in the United States, even people who before maybe even middle-class Mexicans, now they're falling into lower class and now even below. So a lot of people are saying, well, if I'm going to be poor here, I might as well go back home and be poor, at least with my family in Mexico.
Whether wanted or not, in the past, Mexico has provided the largest wave of immigration from a single country into the United States. But now, that figure, just like America's economy, has come to a grinding halt. Crippling unemployment, a housing construction market lying idle, and a sharp rise in deportations are all combining to put people off seeking the good life in America. During the 5-year period from 2005 to 2010, a total net of 1.4 million Mexicans immigrated to the United States, down by more than half from the 3 million who had done so in the 5-year period of 1995 to 2000.
Mexicans that come here to the U.S. often take jobs as farmers and laborers. It is a widespread belief that Mexicans do the jobs that Americans refuse to. So this drastic fall in immigration raises the question, just who will fill in for them?
Welcome back everyone to GGN. My website's ggnonline.com. Alright, so you just saw in this video that woman saying it's work that Americans don't want to do, right? That's the idea, that Americans don't want to do this work. Well, the problem is that these farmers that are bitching and whining about their blackberries going sour and stuff like that, if we had the workers, they're all scared out because of an immigration crackdown. And it's what? It's they don't want to pay American citizens to do this because they're going to have to pay them all the benefits. See, that's the problem, right? There's the problem with the state right in there, right? This big cause of this problem, and nobody's going to look at it, but that's what it is Americans would work for these guys. They would be filling in this gap, but they can't, because if they do, and the farmers basically don't report this because they don't want to have to pay all the other benefits and stuff like that, they'll go to jail, right? They'll go to jail. So they hire people who are willing to risk something, which basically their citizenship, which they don't have, and they'll just be deported back out of the country. So they kind of don't have anything else to lose. But Americans, they have a lot to lose if they get caught doing this and getting paid in cash, basically under the table. But that woman finished the video by saying, or asking the question, posing the question of what? Well, who's going to fill in? Well, I'll tell you who's going to fill it in. It's going to be prison labor. And the way they did it in Georgia was what? Well, they have one of the toughest laws yet to fight illegal immigration that went into effect, and this is, of course, last year? And the crazy thing is that these illegal immigrants, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to become prison labor when they get caught, right, with this immigration law. They'll then go to jail, and then they'll what? They'll become what? Prison labor. Inmates working on the farm. Georgia used cheap prison labor to harvest crops for a second year in a row. So before, they were getting paid not that much, but in cash. And whereas now, if they want to keep doing it, they get caught, well, then they're going to be working for free. So it's a lot better deal, right? especially for the farmers. Goes on and talks about this woman who's here illegally. She stayed, but her husband left to work farms in Washington. So they wanted to avoid any chance of them both getting arrested. Well, it's kind of crazy because out in Washington, from last year in November, Washington prison inmate apple pickers picking up speed. So I've covered this before, but yeah, they're using these prisoners to pick apples. But they're not going to be the only prison inmate labor in the future. I've mentioned this before. You have all these people that are having trouble paying off their mortgages due to the quote housing crisis. So they owe more than what the houses are worth. Because a lot of that wealth, a lot of that value was basically siphoned off. That was the part of the scam, along with all the banking regulations that came afterwards. But my point is that you got all these people that owe on their homes, and now unemployment's around 20%. The real unemployment rate's probably just going to go up. So the economy is somewhat stagnant, and people, although when they were polled, said that they think it's getting better. Well, this is becoming the new economy, and it includes slave labor. So all those people that owe tuition debt, there's a big tuition bubble, college tuition bubble. Well, where do you think those students who aren't going to be able to find jobs are going to work? They're going to work as slave labor to work off their debt in debtors' prisons, which are coming back. And we all know that the United States has the biggest prison population. So there's just this whole pool of untapped workers, free labor that's out there right now, and they're just waiting to utilize it. So it says here, patrolling coastal routes to stop contraband and smuggling. It says here that as enforcement tightens on the border, it's tightening on the border. I wasn't aware that there was security on the border at all, but apparently there is, and it says that they're using coastal routes to get their contraband into their country. So it says here that the Office of Air and Marine combines both forces to basically, manage it. The point of this article, though, is that the only drugs that are coming through are authorized by the government, possibly even aided in little prop planes by the intelligence agencies. So we know they're not there to stop smuggling of drugs, okay? And we know that they're not there to prevent illegal immigration because, look at how long they've let them come in. So obviously their track record is shit. So they're not there to do that. They could be there to do what? To keep Americans in. So this is what I'm saying, is it gets worse and the economy degrades even further. You got all these people that should be working and they're not, right? And they call them useless eaters. Well, we want to keep them inside this new prison camp. New law allows mobilization of reservists to respond to natural disasters. Of course, there's always natural disasters, but except for a crisis involving weapons of mass destruction, the U.S. military reserves historically have been prohibited from providing a homeland disaster response. New authority in this year's Defense Department Authorization Act changes that. And it goes down there and it says, for these forces to be used, the law specifies that the president must declare an emergency or disaster. Well, aren't we still kind of in a state of emergency since 9/11? Probably even before that. So it says here the law also permits mobilizations for extended periods to support theater security missions around the world. So they're going to export these localized troops, right? So they could have NATO troops in here firing on American citizens. But it basically refers to them as becoming what? The federal default force. So these state guards are basically federal troops. Okay, I'm going to speed it up here, but Pentagon source alludes to martial law around July 1st, 2012. I don't usually use before it's news, but I'll just throw it out there, right? Just like the video of the cache of weapons and all that stuff on the border of Mexico and that. It says here the following urgent email comes from a friend of this person, and it says that details from the contact indicated was too afraid of repercussions to give more information. But it says here, hello all, an associate came by today. His brother-in-law works in Belgium for the Pentagon in a high-ranking position. He told my associate that if you do not get out of America by July 1st, you will never get out. So there you go. So we have this article, just like the intelligence agencies and the government's actually bringing in the drugs. You have what? Like I've mentioned before, the Mexican government is actually in bed with, if not controlled by, the drug cartels. So it says here, a Mexican judge holds more generals in drug probe. So Mexican investigators widen a probe into military corruption in the drug war, holding retired generals in custody for alleged ties to the cartels. So here in America, a bill was just passed where basically youth, children on a farm, family farm, whatever, they're able to work on the farm and do stuff like they call it chores, whatever. But you're an asset, right? I mean, if you have 2 arms, legs, and you have a brain, you're an asset to a farm because you can help. So it's not just stupid chores, but that's what the people call it in the mainstream media. And so now they pass a bill, the government has, that they can't do that anymore. So they can't help on their family farm, but youth joblessness is at a near crisis peak, so they don't really care about that. It says here that by 2016, the youth employment rate is projected to remain at the same high level. And of course, all of these people that will graduate will be putting continued pressure on the jobless rate. And of course, wars are good for reducing the jobless rate. Beijing sets its sights on Central Europe, so China has begun to invest more heavily in Central and Eastern Europe. Then we move on, more China news. China warns Australia to choose Godfather, China or U.S., so you have to choose, right, between the big powers. Someone mentioned before the dragon or the eagle. I think most of us realize that Australia is going to go with the United States. So China's in Europe. We know that they're in what? I think it's Eastern Africa and that, or Western Africa, basically Africa. So China is vying for Africa as well, Europe, Australia. U.S. lets China bypass Wall Street for Treasury orders. Now remember, the Fed just cleared the first U.S. bank takeover by a Chinese company. So China can now bypass Wall Street when buying U.S. government debt and go straight to the U.S. Treasury, which is what? They handle all of the business that the Federal Reserve gets. They're the kind of the go-between between you, the slave, that's paying off the debt from all the way back to 1933, and the Treasury handles that with the Federal Reserve System. So yes, the Treasury's first ever direct relationship with a foreign government. Next up, French leader vows to keep cash-stripped Greece into Eurozone. So we knew that this guy was a shill for these globalists, and he is. He's going to keep this going, right? Secret central bank aid props up Greek banks, and the liquidity provided by the central bank. So again, these are all private banks. So it says here, Anglo-Saxon media out to sink us, says Spain's intelligence services are investigating the role of British and American media in fomenting financial turmoil. Because it's good for the banks, good business, interests. Barack Obama is the first United Nations president. So Obama's not an American president, he is a United Nations president who has been secretly destroying the sovereignty and wealth of the United States at the benefit of the private transnational interests who control the United Nations, the CIA, Wall Street, and global banking system. And don't believe me? Obama presses EU leaders on growth. So yeah, so at the G8, Obama was stressing the need for the Eurozone to focus on Greece inside the Euro. And growth, of course, is what? Is spending money, is taking on more debt from the central banks. So Brussels wants e-identities for EU citizens. They're set to launch a review of rules governing personal documents in the aim of making electronic identities take off across the EU. So you can't leave, right? Work off that debt. That's why these globalists want what? To barcode everyone at birth. That's right. A global thinker every minute wants to put forward a radical, inspiring, controversial idea, no matter how improbable. Well, it's coming. And of course, this is written by a science fiction writer, so it's not going to happen. It's just fiction. Well, no, she's writing what's coming, what's already planned, what's already being rolled out. It says here the FBI has formed a domestic communications assistance center, which is tasked with developing new electronic surveillance technologies, including intercepting the internet. So they're forming a secretive net surveillance unit. And the Internet Protection Act would eliminate derogatory anonymous web posts to help stop cyberbullying. So it says here, revealed U.S. spy operation that manipulates social media. Talking about the military sock puppet software that's creating fake online identities to spread pro-American propaganda. Basically, it's to attack people like myself, Dutchans. They're called trolls and that. Half of Florida high school students are failing reading tests, which is a success then. Robert Wright to college students, you're fucked. But maybe go for this degree. Spy agency, NSA, and that seeks cyber operations curriculum. And you'll have a robo-tutor or automated teaching software like IBM that's going to use for seniors in college. And then we have Facebook and smartphones, the new tools for psychological science research, which was the whole point in the beginning.